Hello friends, first of all, hearty welcome of all of you in this video lecture of 12th standard economics. From many previous video lectures, we studied various concepts related to demand, concept of demand, concept of individual demand, market demand, individual demand schedule, market demand schedule, types of demand, determinants of demand, law of demand. So in this video lecture I continue the remaining part of this topic, that is 3a, demand analysis. The next part is variation and changes in demand. If you want to understand this both concepts properly, you must understand the concept of law of demand and the relationship between price and demand and determinants of demand. So first of all, variation in demand. Variation in demand has two types: extension in demand and contraction in demand. And change in demand has two types: increase in demand and decrease in demand. So next, variations in demand. So variation in demand refers to rise or fall in demand due to change in price, while other factors are constant which determine demand, that is ceteris paribus, other things being remaining constant. So no change in other factors, change only in price. So variation in demand refers to rise or fall in demand due to change in price only, other things which determine demands, that is other factors are constant. So there is no change in other factors, change only in price. So variation in demand have two types: extension of demand or extension in demand and contraction in demand. So first of all, variation in demand refers to rise or fall in demand. While you study the concept variations in demand, particularly and specifically, you must use the words rise, fall and not increase, decrease relating to show the change in demand. Particularly you use or you must use the word rise or fall and not increase and decrease, because rise or fall in demand due to change in price while other factors are constant, known as variation in demand. And increase and decrease is different part, it is related to change in demand. So there is no change in other factors, all other things being remaining constant, which is constant at the time of as per the statement of law of demand, other things being constant, higher the price of commodity, lower is the quantity demanded, and vice versa. So like that, variation in demand refers to rise or fall in demand due to change in price while other factors which determine the demand remain constant, that is other factors are constant as for underline. So there is no change in other factors, change only in price. So there is variation in demand have two types: extension in demand or extension of demand, extension and contraction. So first of all, we see diagrammatically what is meant by extension of demand. On y-axis we shows price in rupees, and on x-axis we shows quantity demanded. This P shows original price, this Q shows original quantity, this okay. So this P shows original price. When price is P, quantity demanded is Q. When price is P, quantity demanded is Q. And if there is fall in price, from P to P1, P to P1, there is a rise in quantity demanded from Q to Q1. The dotted line shows change and this line shows that is original P and original Q, that is P and Q shows original price and original quantity, and P1 and Q1 is fall in price and a rise in quantity demanded. Due to fall in price, there is rise in quantity demanded. So demand curve slopes downward from left to right, that is DD. D is the demand curve, DD is the demand curve which slopes downward from left to right. Okay, I again revise here. On y-axis, here we study, or I am trying to explain you the concept of extension of demand graphically. On y-axis we show price of commodity. On x-axis we show quantity demanded. P is the original price, Q is the original quantity. So we joined P and Q, both the points. Due to fall in price, this arrow shows, due to fall in price, there is a rise in quantity demanded from Q to Q1. So this, because of fall in price, this portion, that is this portion, there is rise in demand from Q to Q1. This portion, that is expansion, of demand, or extension of demand. Because of fall in price, there is extension in demand. So this curve shows dV, this curve shows downward sloping demand curve. This curve shows downward sloping demand curve. Because of fall in price, quantity demanded rises, known as a extension of demand. Next, contraction of demand. This graph shows contraction of demand. P is the original price, which is shown on y-axis. Q is the original quantity demanded, which is shown on x-axis. P, that is original price. Q, that is original quantity demanded. If there is rise in price, if there is, due to rise in price from P to P2, rise in price from P to P2, quantity demanded become less, or there is fall in quantity demanded. Due to rise in price from P to P2, quantity demanded become less, or there is fall in quantity demanded from Q to Q2, from Q to Q2. So this is demand curve in case of contraction in demand, that is rise in price from P, that is original price from P2, quantity demanded is fall by Q to Q2, that is known as contraction in demand. इथं काय झालंय एक्सटेन्शनच्या बाबतीत, डिमांड राईज झाली, हा ॲरो दाखवतो रेड ॲरो, आणि इथं हा जो ॲरो दाखवतो रेड ॲरो, इथं काय दाखवतोय, डिमांड कमी झालेली आहे, फॉल इन डिमांड ड्यू टू राईज इन प्राइस. So in words, meaning of expansion of demand, expansion in demand refers to rise in demand with the fall in price. जे ह्या ग्राफमध्ये दाखवले फॉल झालेले प्राइस P2P पर्यंत P1 पर्यंत प्राइस फॉल झालेली आहे आणि Q2 Q1 पर्यंत डिमांड राईज झालेली आहे. एक्सपान्शन इन डिमांड refers to rise in demand with the fall in price. Then what are the reasons why there is expansion is demand is happen? Expansion in demand takes place due to fall in price with other factors remaining constant. Expansion in demand takes place due to fall in price but other factors remaining constant. Then what other factors? The other factors which determine demand, that is determinants of demands remaining constant. Determinants of demand remaining constant. Next, representation. Expansion in demand represent by downward movement of the same demand curve, that is downward movement. This arrow shows downward movement of the same demand curve, downward movement of the same demand curve. Next, contraction in demand inverse. Contraction in demand refers to fall in demand with the rise in price. This arrow shows there is fall in demand from Q to Q2 because of rise in price from P to P2. Reason why there is contraction in demand. Contraction in demand takes place due to rise in the price. And extension is due to fall in the price. Contraction is due to rise in the price. Other factors which determine the demand remaining constant. Representation. Contraction in demand represented by upward movement of the demand curve, and here downward movement, upward movement of the demand curve. So this is expansion and contraction of demand. Okay, this diagram shows combined diagram, that is variation in demand, combined diagram of extension and contraction together, that is combined diagram of extension and contraction, known as a variation in demand. So this is y-axis, this is x-axis. On y-axis we show price, on x-axis we show quantity demanded. This is an original price, that is P. This is an original quantity, that is Q. Due to fall in price from P to P1, there is rise in quantity demanded from Q to Q1, known as extension of demand, that is expansion, extension of demand, expansion or extension of demand. In second case, when there is rise in price from P to P2, original quantity become fallen or less. There is fall in quantity demanded due to rise in price from P to P2, known as contraction in demand. So this is a combined diagram of expansion and contraction known as a variation in demand. Next, changes in demand. Changes in demand. When demand for commodity increases, when demand for commodity increases, when demand for commodity increases or decreases due to changes in the other factors, other than price, that is price remain constant, other than price, that is price remain constant. Then in which other factors there is change in other factor, that is income, size of population, taste, fashion, etc. That is all determinants of demand. I repeat here, changes in demand. When demand for commodity increases or decreases due to changes in other factors other than price, changes in other factors other than price means price remain constant, and in variation there is change in price, other things remain constant, but in changes in demand, other things there is changes in other factors and price remain constant. Then which other factors there is change in other factors, that is income, size of population, taste, fashion, are all determinants of demand. There is change in all determinants of demand and price remain constant. Change in demand have two types: increase in demand and decrease in demand. Increase in demand and decrease in demand. So first of all, we see what is meant by increase in demand. That is this portion only. First we see this portion only, increase in demand in words, meaning more demand at same price, same demand at higher price, more demand at higher price. Or in other words, when more quantity of commodity is demanded because of change in the factors determining demand other than price, it is an increase in demand. when more quantity of commodity is demanded because of changes in the factors. More quantity of commodity is demanded. More quantity of commodity is demanded because of changes in the factors determining demand other than price. It is an increase in demand. Then what is the reason why there is increase in demand? The reason behind it, that is increase in demand, is it take place due to favorable changes. Changes are favorable in factors like income, fashion, except price सोडून, price को छोड़ के. Representation, increase in demand represented by rightward shift of the demand curve. Rightward shift, this thing is important. It is rightward shift of the demand curve. Increase in demand when more quantity of commodity is demanded because of changes in the factors determining demand other than price. It is an increase in demand. So the next, decrease in demand. Less demand at same price, same demand at lower price, less demand at lower price. Or in other words, when less quantity of commodity is demanded, less, this less is important. Less quantity of commodity is demanded because of changes in factors determining demand other than price. It is an decrease in demand. When less quantity of commodity is demanded because of change in the factors determining demand, less quantity is demanded because of why? Because of changes in the factors which determine the demand. That is, all determinants of demand are already we've seen in previous lectures. Other than price, it is an decrease in demand. Then what is the reason why there is decrease in demand? Because of unfavorable changes. In increase in demand there is favorable changes. In increasing demand there is favorable changes in factors, but in decreasing demand there is unfavorable changes. Unfavorable changes in factors like income, fashion, except price. Except price. Next, representation. Decrease in demand represented by leftward shift of the demand curve. Leftward shift of the demand curve. Leftward shift of the demand curve. So graphically, increase in demand on y-axis we shows price of commodity, and on x-axis we show quantity demanded. P, here P is the price, Q is the quantity demanded. When price is P, quantity demanded is Q. But due to favorable changes in determinants of demand other than price, that is, price remain constant, there is increase in demand or change in demand known as increase in demand. There is no any change in price. Instead of change in price, there is change in demand from Q to Q1 known as increase in demand, and this demand curve is rightward shift of demand curve. Demand curve, this is the original DD. This DD, that is DD, is original demand curve, and the demand curve shows with the help of dotted lines shows DD1, that is rightward shift of demand curve, that is increase in demand. This increase in demand. Again I explain you graph. On y-axis we show price of commodity, on x-axis quantity demanded. P is the price of commodity, Q is the quantity demanded of commodity. When price is P, quantity demanded is Q, demand curve, that is original demand curve, is DD, is the original demand curve. But instead of change in price, or there is no change in price, but there is change in demand, or change in demand, that is the change which is increase in demand due to favorable change in the factors which determine the demand. Due to favorable changes, there is increase in demand. So this line shows, the dotted line shows the demand slopes rightward shift of the original demand curve, that is increase in demand. Next we show here graphically decrease in demand. On y-axis we show price, on x-axis quantity demanded. P is the original price, Q is the quantity demanded. Due to unfavorable changes on the factors which determine demand other than price, there is, in this graph also, there is no change in price, it's shown, but there is change in demand from, this is the original demand curve, that is DD, this is the original demand curve DD, but there is change in demand due to, that is unfavorable change, due to unfavorable change in the factors which determine demand. The demand curve slopes leftward, or shift leftward from the original demand curve DD. The dotted line demand curve shows the demand, that is decrease in demand. This dotted line shows the decreased demand curve. Here rightward shift increase, leftward shift decrease. Next, combined diagram of increase and decrease in demand. On y-axis we show price of commodity, on x-axis quantity demanded. P is the origin is the price, Q is the quantity demanded, and DD is the original demand curve when price is P and quantity demanded is Q. Due to favorable changes in factors which determine demand other than price remain constant. The demand curve, there is increase in demand, so this dotted line DD1 and quantity demanded is also increases from Q to Q1, Q to Q1, that is increase in demand, that is increase in demand. Next, and at the same price when demand is decreases from Q to Q2 because of unfavorable changes in factors which determine demand other than price, that is decrease in demand. This dotted line shows DD2 shows decrease, this shows increase, and this is original demand curve. Middle is original, this is increase, and this is decrease. This both the concept, that is variation and change in demand, is very important as far as HSC exam is concerned. All of you must watch this video and if you find this video is helpful to you, then please subscribe my channel Sridesh 999, and after watching this video you have to write down distinguish between variation in demand and change in demand, distinguish between expansion in demand and contraction in demand, distinguish between increase in demand and decrease in demand. Thanks for watching. Today I stop here.